All right, buckle up because this one is going to be a wild ride between Rumi's mystical poetry, actual neuroscience, and that one time you cried in the frozen food aisle because a song from your teenage years came on. Picture this. You are standing there, minding your own business, buying peas, when suddenly your heart gets drop-kicked by a memory. It is like your emotional chest cavity just went through airport security, and instead of finding a laptop, they discovered a suitcase full of heartbreak. And here is the kicker. Rumi, the 13th century Persian poet, would say, "Good, perfect, exactly as it should be." Because according to him, breaking your heart is the best way to open it. Which sounds like advice from that one friend who insists tequila is the cure for a hangover. At first glance, this sounds like madness. Why would anyone want to break their own heart? That is like telling someone the best way to fix your car is to set it on fire. But here is the paradox. Rumi believed that when your heart cracks open from loss, grief, or even the bittersweet ache of loving someone fully, that break is not the end. It is the start of a deeper, wider love. It is like emotional home renovations, messy, expensive, and occasionally making you question all your life choices. But in the end, you have more space. And he was not alone in this. Modern neuroscience backs him up. When you go through heartbreak, your brain's emotional wiring lights up in the same regions that process deep learning. Essentially, your brain is like, "Oh, you hurt? Great, let's grow." It is the emotional equivalent of doing push-ups until your arms feel like noodles. Pain tears down old neural patterns so you can build new, stronger ones. Think about it. If your heart never broke, you would be living in the emotional equivalent of a tiny studio apartment with a leaky tap and a suspicious stain on the carpet. Breaking your heart knocks down walls, and yes, it lets in drafts, but it also lets in sunlight. Rumi would say, "The wound is the place where the light enters you," which, translated into modern English, means, stop duct taping your feelings shut. Let some light in, champ. And this is not just poetic nonsense. It is psychological gold. Studies on post-traumatic growth show that many people report higher levels of empathy, gratitude, and life satisfaction after enduring deep emotional pain. Heartbreak is like compost. It stinks, it is messy, but given time, it makes everything grow richer. The problem is, most of us treat heartbreak like we treat a power outage. We scramble for candles, sit in the dark, and wait for someone else to fix it. Rumi's way is different. He says lean into the darkness because the darkness is the tunnel that leads somewhere brighter. That is why so many of his poems talk about longing, not as a curse, but as a sacred kind of hunger. Hunger hurts, but it also means you are alive, reaching for something beyond yourself. Now, here is the funny part. Most of us try to avoid heartbreak by playing emotional twister. We dodge vulnerability like it is an aggressive seagull at the beach. We ghost people, we keep our feelings locked up tighter than grandma's cookie jar, and we scroll past anything that feels too real. But avoiding heartbreak is like avoiding exercise because you do not want sore muscles. Sure, you avoid the soreness, but you also avoid getting stronger. And here is the sciencey bit. When you love fully, you are activating oxytocin, dopamine, and serotonin, the holy trinity of feel-good brain chemicals. But when that love is lost, your brain temporarily crashes, which feels like emotional food poisoning. However, the rebuilding process rewires your emotional capacity. You become more resilient, more empathetic, and, if you do it right, more willing to love again because you have seen that even the worst pain cannot destroy you. That is why Rumi's advice to let yourself be silently drawn by the strange pull of what you really love is not just a romantic Instagram caption. It is a neuroscience-backed hack for living a fuller life. Because yes, the thing you really love might wreck you for a while, but it will also remake you. And here is the kicker. When your heart breaks, it does not just open to more love, it opens to more life. You notice beauty more. You laugh harder. You cry at commercials for laundry detergent because they show a dad folding clothes for his kid. You start to see connections everywhere. It is like life went from standard definition to full 4K Ultra HD, and yes, sometimes that means you see more of the dirt, but you also see more of the light. The real trick, according to Rumi, is not to rush through the pain. Our culture treats healing like it is a race. Download the app, do the cleanse, read the self-help book with a sunset on the cover, and boom, you are fixed. But healing is not Amazon Prime. It does not show up in 2 days with free shipping. Rumi says to sit in the fire until it teaches you something, and that is hard. It is hard because your ego is basically a nightclub bouncer for your emotions, trying to keep anything uncomfortable out. But if you never let discomfort in, you never get to see what it has to offer. Think of heartbreak as an emotional jailbreak. Yes, the walls are crumbling, but that means you are free to explore parts of yourself you never knew existed. Maybe you discover you can write poetry, or cook, or finally talk to your parents about that thing you have been avoiding since you were 12. The point is, heartbreak forces you to meet yourself without all the usual distractions. And here's a little practical tip straight from the Rumi playbook. When you feel your heart breaking, do not immediately fill the gap with noise, whether that is binge-watching, rebound relationships, or adopting 6 cats and naming them after Marvel superheroes. Sit with it. Listen to it. Rumi would call that the music beneath the noise. Neuroscientists call it interoception, the ability to sense your own internal state. The better you get at it, the more you can regulate your emotions and actually grow from pain instead of just surviving it. And if you are thinking, okay, great, but this still sounds like spiritual masochism, here is where the paradox really makes sense. The moment you stop fighting heartbreak, it loses its grip on you. Acceptance flips the script. Pain goes from being the villain in your life to being the weird, eccentric mentor in your personal hero's journey. You stop asking, why me? And start asking, what now? That is where transformation happens. And once you have walked through that fire, you love differently. You love without clinging. You love without the illusion that it will last forever, which ironically makes you appreciate it more. You become one of those people who can sit at a cafe, watching rain slide down the window and feel grateful for everything. Yes, even the heartbreak that once flattened you. Because now you know that every crack in your heart is just a doorway. And the more doorways you have, the more places love can enter. So if you are in the middle of heartbreak right now, here is your Rumi-inspired pep talk. Do not rush it, do not numb it, and for the love of all things caffeinated, do not text your ex at 2 a.m. Sit in it. Let it teach you, because one day you will realize the version of you that comes out of this is bigger, softer, and stronger all at once. And when you meet someone new, or reconnect with an old friend, or even just see a sunset that makes your chest ache in that good way, you will understand exactly what Rumi meant. Your heart was not broken, it was opened, which is why I am going to leave you with this. The next time life drop kicks your emotions into a wall, instead of trying to patch it up immediately, just remember that crack is not the end of the story. It is the start of a bigger one. Now go ahead and live it, and if this made you laugh, think, or at least reconsider crying in the frozen food aisle, hit that subscribe button for more fast, funny, genius-level content from XQ. Quick, funny explanations. Drop your thoughts in the comments because your perspective could be the light someone else needs right now.